Welcome back. In this video, I will put forth stronger objections to Peter Singer's philosophy. One big objection to Singer's philosophy is the demandingness objection. Yes, it is easy for me to give up my boots to save the drowning child. However, asking me to give up all non-essential purchases and all luxury items and all the money that I would have spent on these non-essential items is really way too demanding when you think about it. Do you really need a Mercedes? You could have bought the Toyota. That's a reliable car. It takes you from point A to point B. Why did you spend so much on a Mercedes? You could have used all that money to help the children in Africa. Hey, what's in your hand? Is that an expensive handbag?
Designer's name, Louis Wooten.
Do you know how many children you could have fed for that money? And yo, what's with the $200 per month gym membership? Do you really need all these fancy equipment? You could do push-ups and squats and sit-ups at home, and you can go out for a jog, and you can be fit without spending any money. Yo, is that a $10 Frappuccino in your hand? You do realize that you can make coffee at home for a fraction of that cost, don't you? Wait, you spent how much on a haircut? $25? You could have just shaved your head at home and used that money to help starving children. Dude, are you wearing a watch? Why do you need a watch? Your phone has the time. So as you can see, it becomes way too demanding, both financially and psychologically. Now I can't make a move without feeling guilty. I can't make a move without second-guessing my choices. And now I'm not just giving up a pair of boots, I'm giving up literally tens of thousands of dollars per year. That's a lot to ask. I mean, it would be nice if I donate that money, but to say that I have a duty to give up all these things seems to be pushing it. If we're really honest with ourselves, no one can or no one will follow this theory. It's just way too demanding. Now, Peter Singer responds by saying that the truth of a moral theory is independent of how likely it is that people will follow it. So he argues that the moral theory is true, if you think about it logically. The fact that people will not follow it or will not believe it doesn't make it less true. Now, I would respond to Singer by saying that, dude, you're being way too dismissive here. The demandingness objection is very legitimate. See, this is not an abstract philosophy that you're putting forth. This is not something like, what is the nature of time? Or something like that. No, this is morality. This is ethics. Ethics is concerned with how people should act. What is the right thing to do? How we should live our lives? What is the good life? Ethics is a very practical matter. So if you put forth a theory that no one can or no one will apply, that's a bad theory. Your theory is supposed to guide people's actions. If it fails to do so, then it's a lousy theory. I would also like to argue that the analogy between the drowning child and the starving African child is a false analogy. Saying that the two are the same is a false equivalence. The drowning child case is very salient. So when I see a drowning child right before my eyes, it stirs my emotions. It makes me want to act. And if I don't, I'm a psychopath who has zero compassion because it's right there in front of me. As for the child in Africa, the case is not very psychologically salient. Yes, I'm aware that there are people who are dying, that there are people who are starving, but it's more abstract. They say that Joseph Stalin once said, "One death is a tragedy, a million deaths are a statistic." It's a very provocative quote, but it gives you a glimpse into human psychology. When there is one death in front of you, you can identify with it. It moves you. It's a tragedy. You need to act quickly. But when you hear about, thousands or millions of people who are dying elsewhere, it doesn't have that salience. It doesn't move you like the one case does. So to say that you not helping the child who's drowning is the same as you not helping the African child who's starving, I'm sorry, they're not the same. And deep down, Singer knows this. If you tell Singer, hey, I have two guys. One guy watched a child drown in front of him in a shallow pond and he did nothing. And another guy who heard about some famine in Africa and he did not donate any money. You have to choose one of these two to be your roommate. Which one would you like to be roommates with? Do you think Singer's going to say, hey, they're both equally bad, doesn't matter which one? I'm sorry. No, you would clearly want to avoid the guy who didn't help the drowning child. We intuitively know that they're not the same. The difference between the drowning child and the African child might not be logical, but it is psychological. And that psychological factor is very salient. And it makes the two cases different. Also, the drowning child is a case of urgency and emergency. You literally have 2 to 3 seconds to act, otherwise the child will die. Now, the African child example is different. It is an ongoing, pervasive, chronic, systemic problem. Such problem requires reflection. You have to reflect upon complex moral, political, and economic considerations. What's the best way to help? Should we donate money? Should we donate our time? Should we raise awareness? What's the best way to deal with it? Which is the best charity? How much should I donate? Which is more important? Famine relief, preventing diseases, putting children through schools, providing relief to people who are devastated by the effects of a war. You have to think. You have to consider. But the drowning child example doesn't require any reflection, and indeed it will be extremely inappropriate and foolish to start analyzing. There's a child who's drowning. What do I do? Wait a minute. Where are his parents? How come they left him unattended like that? If I save him, would he drown again tomorrow? What if this child grows up to be a serial killer? Maybe saving him would be a bad idea. If I jump in, I would damage my boots. You know what? Maybe I should not save him. I should sell my boots, get the $200, and donate this $200 to a charity that specializes in teaching children how to swim. This way, we'll save more children from drowning. Dude, stop talking. Stop talking.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Just jump in the damn pond and save the child. Another important difference between the two cases is the uncertainty of what action needs to be taken and how effective that action would be. So in the drowning child example, you have one job. What should I do? It's very clear what you should do. You should step in the pond and save the child. And you know that is going to be very effective. If you pull him out quickly, he's going to survive. However, in the starving African child case, you're not sure what's the best way to go. Which is the best charity? Which one is more effective? Which charity is fraudulent? If I give $200 to this charity, will that child get $200? Or would 80% of that money go to the charity's overhead and to pay the administrators who work there, and the child would get $20 only?
Hey, what type of maths is this?
Maybe I should donate it locally here, give it to someone where he can get the full $200. I have to research, I have to do my homework. If I give this $200 to charity, would it save that African child? Or would it feed him for a short while and then he would starve again and we're back to square one? Is my action effective? What's the best way to go? What should I do? Again, we see that the two cases are not the same. There's a relevant moral difference between the two. A drowning child and starving African child are not the same. I would also like to revisit the diffusion of responsibility objection. I still want to argue that in the drowning child case, you are the only one who sees the drowning child, and this problem rests on your shoulder entirely. So if you don't act, you're being immoral. But the starving children in Africa, there are millions and millions of people who are aware, and their government is aware, and the billionaires are aware. So it's not the same thing. Now, if none of us acts to save the dying child in Africa, you can say that we have failed collectively as a society.
You know, we're living in a society.
You can't single me out in the African case. There are literally millions of people who could have helped. Why are you singling me out? Yes, if there's a drowning child and there are two people standing next to me and they're not doing anything, I am not excused. I have to still jump in and save the child. That's true, I accept that. But that is because of the urgency of the situation. We don't have time to wait for the other two people to act. You don't have that luxury. You have to act within 2 seconds. But this is not a correct analogy for what's happening in Africa. A better analogy would be you opening up a newspaper and reading that a lot of children have been dying for the past month in the swimming pools of hotels around the city. So if you fold the newspaper and don't take any action, that doesn't make you a horrible human being. In your mind, this is a tragedy, but there are lifeguards. They are trained to save people's lives. I'm sure they would and should save these children's lives. And it says here that for the past month, this has been a reoccurring tragedy. Well, maybe the problem is not lifeguards. Maybe we should think of more creative ways to solve this problem, such as not allowing children to swim in the pools, or saying that a child can only go to the pool if he's accompanied by his parents, or he can only step in the pool if he has those flotation devices. Or maybe we should make the pools shallower so they don't drown. Something like that. We need a radical solution. Now, if I decide to go to one of the hotels and say I'm going to stand by at the edge of the pool in case somebody drowns, I would jump in and save him. I can help the lifeguard. God bless you. You're going out of your way to be a good person. This is good. This is commendable behavior. But not acting doesn't make you a bad person. I also want to turn to the issue of economics. If we take Peter Singer's advice seriously and we stop spending money on non-essential items and luxury items, I would argue that actually this is a bad thing. Do you know what will happen in our economy if we stop spending money on such things? Businesses will close down, people will lose their jobs, our people will start to starve, and they would need donations from other nations. We'll become like the nations that we were trying to save. And ironically, we would also hurt the nations that we're trying to save. For example, if we stop buying high-end clothes, the people who make these clothes in India and Sri Lanka and China, they would be out of work, and they would starve, and they would die because of this advice. So no, spending money is healthy. Within limits. I'm not asking you to squander all your money, but some level of consumerism is healthy. You spend more, the businesses expand, they hire more people, those people get salaries, now they have purchasing power, they also start buying things, and that employs more people, and the economy grows, and we become affluent. And then we have some money to spare to help others as well. We also need to think like economists to find a way to deal with poverty. Poverty is a systemic problem. We cannot just solve it by throwing money at it in the form of food, for example. This is like a band-aid. It's a temporary solution. No, we need to be smarter. We need to think of other ways, more sustainable ways of dealing with the problem. For example, building factories in those poor nations. This will provide jobs. It will help people provide for themselves, get a weekly wage, and then they can lift themselves out of poverty. For example, this is just like the saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, but teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying we should not feed people. No, feeding people is good. If you know any hungry people in your community or across the globe and you want to donate some food or donate some money to buy food, God bless you. Sometimes there's nothing better than feeding a hungry person. But I'm just saying, in the long run, we need to find a more sustainable solution. You know, I want to point out another problem in Singer's philosophy. By his standards, if a person lives like a saint, you know, he's giving up all luxuries and all non-essential things and donating all that money, he's not really charitable. He's just doing his duty. So what, you gave up a huge portion of your income to save people's lives? Yes, you should do that. That's your duty. What, you want credit for that? You're supposed to do it.
I always want some credit for some they supposed to do. For some they just supposed to do.
It's like the guy who says, I show up to work every day. Yeah, you should show up to work every day. You signed the contract, they're paying you. It's your job to show up for work every day. What do you want, a cookie? I feed my children.
I take care of my kids. You're supposed to, you dumb mother. What, you want, a cookie?
Yeah, you're supposed to feed your children. It's your duty. You want to be called charitable for it? So the same thing happens if you live by Peter Singer's unrealistic standards. So the saint is just a normal person who's doing his duty, and the normal person like you and I who, you know, sometimes spend on essentials, sometimes spend on luxuries, sometimes we help people, we donate here and there. We're average, charitable people. No, by his standards, we are horrible human beings who are failing our duties. You see that the standards don't make sense. I also feel like we're being bullied philosophically into donating money. Like, yeah, you have to do it. It's your duty. Do it. Shame on you. Like, you're not respecting a human's autonomy and his liberty. This is his money. He can do whatever he wants with it. You should encourage him to be charitable. That's beautiful. But don't pressure him and guilt trip him and bully him into donating money. You need to give people space so that they can grow morally and to do charity out of their own volition. And this is how they become better people. This is how they mature morally. I'll give you an example. Imagine you are a kid in school who's very good at math, and your classmate is struggling and he's failing his math exams and he's crying. Imagine your mom tells you, you're good at math and you have free time. I saw you playing PlayStation. Put that controller down. You have to go and help that classmate. Go teach him some math. Help him out. No, you have to do it. Does that make you a better person? No, you're going to begrudgingly do it, and you're not going to grow morally. Instead, your mom should say, you know, you're really good at math. If you have some free time, and if you want, maybe you can help your classmate. You don't have to do it, but if you can find some time, that'll be nice. And then you start thinking about it. You remember that other time when your classmate helped you with a subject that you were struggling with, and it felt nice, and you think, maybe I should do the same with that other kid. And then you, out of your own volition, go up to that child and teach him some math. That makes you a better person. That makes you grow morally. But beating you over the head with duty, I think, would backfire. Also, it might make a person resentful. Donate, donate, shame on you. You're spending money on luxuries while people are dying. At some point, you will say, dude, leave me alone. Stop harassing me. What, I'm the world's savior now? I'm just an average guy, I have an average salary. Go talk to Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Let them donate something.
You get a car! You get a car! Everybody gets a car!
They have a lot of money. Leave me alone. I didn't sign up for this. These are not my children. I'm not super rich. Let me drink my frappuccino, goddammit. Also note that Peter Singer's standards are so high that if you really believe what he says, you're gonna become paralyzed. You're like, man, I can't do it. I can't do it. Whatever I do, I'm failing in my duties. You know what? I quit. Just like if you have a child who's not very bright, who doesn't like studying, who barely passes his exams, and you tell him, if you don't get an A, I'm gonna ground you. Do you think he's gonna start studying harder? It's like, how am I gonna get an A? How on earth will I get an A? Forget it. I'm not gonna even try, because I'm definitely not getting an A. So having such unrealistically high targets is not the way to go. So in conclusion, I don't like the analogy between the drowning child and the African child. I think it fails. However, I would really love it if you and I donate more money to charity. We should encourage each other. I'm sure we're not doing enough. I'm sure we can do more. And I hope we do. I really hope after listening to this video, you go out and donate some money. Like if you comment that, hey, Professor Shays, after watching your video, I donated some money to charity, like you'll make my day. But it should come from your heart. And also, I have a suggestion for you. When you buy an expensive luxury item, you can make a rule for yourself. Like when I buy something expensive, I will give 5% of that value to charity. So if you buy that $1,000 handbag, you would give, let's say, $50 in charity. This way you can enjoy the finer things in life, and you can enjoy the fruits of your labor, and you can buy the things that you desire, and not feel guilty about it. But when you do that, you remember that there are less fortunate people, and you donate money to them. So every time you consume, you're also helping. Let me know your thoughts on this topic in the comments below. Which points do you agree with? Which points do you disagree with? And what's your philosophy when it comes to charity? What are your views on charity? Write that down in the comments below. I love reading your comments. And see you next time.
I take care of my kids!
Wait.
Kids always want credit for something they're supposed to do!
It!
What you want, cookie?